is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Andrea Joy Smith.
Thank you, Dr.
Who
Farran.
started out in life as an Oakland Raider fan and then moved to Sacramento where there's no football. How was that? How do you go from the Oakland Raiders to a town of no football?
Well, I lived in the Bay Area after attending dental school at UC San Francisco, and so I actually practiced in Oakland for the first 6 years of my career, and then we decided to move to Sacramento. We like the Sacramento Kings.
I like the Arizona Cardinals the most, but I am jealous of the Raiders logo and deal.
Oh, yes.
That would be, if I had to build a brand around a franchise, our team has to start with the little red bird. They got to start. So Dr. Andrea Joy Smith has been practicing dentistry for over 22 years. She completed her dental training at the University of California, San Francisco in 1994. After practicing for about 6 years in Oakland, California, she relocated her practice to Sacramento, California in 2001. Dr. Smith has been placing mini dental implants since 2007. She is a diplomat in the International Academy of Mini Dental Implants and is a member of the American Academy of Implant Dentistry, the AAID. She has published articles in the Journal of the International Academy of Mini Dental Implants. Dr. Smith believes that the minimally invasive mini dental implants has many applications. She has used them to stabilize loose dentures, replace single or multiple teeth, and fixed or removable full arch restoration. Dr. Smith will soon be publishing a book for dental implants called In the Chair with Dr. Smith, Treating More Than Toothaches. So what do you think, out of all the things in dentistry, from pediatric dentistry to root canals, to what made you fall in love with implants?
What made me fall in love with implants are the patients that we can help with implants. When implants first came on board, they were mostly accepted as the wide diameter implants. You have to have a certain amount of bone and a certain amount of just your bone physiology had to be a certain way. Now we have a lot of elderly patients who are medically compromised. They don't have a lot of bone. They've worn dentures for years. And we can actually introduce implants to those patients as well. So that's why I like the mini dental implant. Patients who are sort of locked out of getting conventional implants can now receive the same service with a comparable success rate.
So why do you think, like I know one of the most prestigious oral surgeons in Germany who says 20 years ago he placed 500 conventional implants a year and 0 minis.
Yes.
And now 20 years later he still places 500 conventionals a year, but he places 500 minis. And then you'll meet an oral surgeon in America who says minis are crazy. There's no indication for a mini. Why do you see such a variance just among board certified oral surgeons?
Well, I think the gentleman in Germany has it right. In life, in general, in surgery, minimally invasive procedures are becoming more prevalent. Even when you think about a knee surgery, they're doing it orthoscopically now. So the progression from doing something more conventionally that requires a lot more surgery, a lot more downtime, going to something minimally invasive has been the trend for many, many years. And I believe in the case of the gentleman from the American trained dentist, they are just going with what they know. Maybe they had a bad experience with the mini dental implants, because a lot of times what they see in their offices are things that fail. Now, they also see conventional implants that fail, but they don't really not believe in them because they were trained in them. That's the way they were taught, and that's what they believe in. But if one of my mini implant patients ends up with a failed implant in their office, because they don't place them and they're not familiar with the technique, they are more likely to say, oh, they probably shouldn't have done that anyway. So I just think it's people doing what they're used to. And like I said, the gentleman in Germany, he's just keeping in line with what surgeries in general are going to these days. I
think it's funny how they'll say that, a mini you can't do. You have to do a conventional. Right. But I just look at the variance and the size of my patients. I mean, I got patients from little 5 foot tall little old ladies to men that are 6'6".
Correct.
I mean, can you not see a variance in your patient? How could there not be a variance in the implant when the variance of the patient? I mean, I bet my smallest patient is half as tall as my tallest patient.
Absolutely. But also the location of teeth in the jaw. You can see a difference in the dental anatomy of a lower incisor as opposed to a molar. So there has to be an application for a smaller implant someplace, because in order to augment that bone where the lower incisor is, there's a lot of surgery that needs to happen to augment the bone. And so if you can do it in a more minimally invasive way, there's nothing wrong with trying it. And actually a lot of the larger diameter implant companies, they have a small smaller diameter product, but that's probably not the one that they are advertising as much because they're not as widely accepted. However, they are becoming widely accepted these days.
Okay, so people our age aren't podcasters. They read books.
Yes.
You know, they're the old-fashioned kind.
Right.
And so most of your podcasters are 30 and under.
Okay.
And a lot of them, so my job is to guess what they're asking, and I know what they're saying right now. They're saying, I just graduated from dental school. 6,000 just walked out, a couple months ago.
Yes.
And I have $350,000 student loans, and we didn't place one implant. How do I go from, I just graduated from school, I've never done one. How do I go from 0 to 1? Because you're talking about going from 1,000 to 1,001. That's easy.
True. Yes.
How do you go from 0 to 1? That's
one.
The hardest.
Well, one of the things about dental school is it gives you an excellent foundation. However, it doesn't always teach the latest available technologies in dental school. So first of all, it definitely starts with education after dental school. And it also starts with an open mind. A lot of times when you first get out of dental school, the only thing that you know is what you were just taught. And the only thing that you do is what you were just taught. But as you know, in any field, whether you're learning to use a CEREC machine, there's a whole world of CEREC users out there. You can go to a CEREC convention and be there for a week and still not know everything about CEREC. The same thing with mini dental implants. You can come to a mini dental implant convention and you can see the wide variety of doctors that are doing them. A lot of the doctors that are doing mini dental implants have been doing conventional implants for years, and they're now starting to see some of the successes that are coming along with the mini dental implants, and so they're going there. So it actually starts with education, but first and foremost, it starts with an open mind, and that's another thing you were talking about with the oral surgeon in America that doesn't find an application for mini dental implants. His mind is more than likely not open to it because it's not something that they believe in or were taught.
But where could she go to learn her first? Where would you recommend that she goes to start learning more?
Oh yes, there is a company called Shatkin First. They have a beautiful implant training center in Buffalo, New York. In fact, I lecture for them. I started associating with that group probably in 2012 and 2016, 4 years. And I started placing mini dental implants in general in 2007, but it took a few years for me to actually come across Shatkin First. And before I was placing them manually with my slow speed handpiece and hand instruments, but now I'm using surgically guided stents. And so they teach the whole gamut of that. So it's the Shatkin First is where I go. There's other companies as well. Like I said, most conventional implant companies are starting to provide smaller implants as well. So some of the major implant companies will offer that same option as well.
So when you're taking that course, do you get to eat any buffalo wings? Since
we actually do.
You're in this city where they invented
in
buffalo
New York,
wings.
They have buffalo wings for us there regularly.
It's true. They were really invented there.
They were really invented there. There's a restaurant that that's in the airport. It's the first restaurant that actually invented the buffalo wing. So yes, you'll get to go and have some buffalo wings as well.
So put on your mom hat because you and I both have an amazing, gorgeous son who's my oldest 27, you're 26? Yes. 26. So many of these graduates are stressed because they come out of school, they got all these student loans to pay off.
Yes. And
they're saying, I want to learn all the bloodless stuff. I want to go into Invisalign or sleep apnea and all that because you're talking about bloody stuff.
Yes.
And I'm just afraid of it. I'm not like you. You're into blood and guts. You're even wearing a blood-colored shirt today. What would you say to someone who's just afraid of blood and guts and she just says, I just want to learn Invisalign, veneers, cosmetic, bleaching, bonding because I'm afraid of blood?
Well, those types of procedures are definitely doable. If you wanted to limit your practice to cosmetic work like Invisalign, lumineers, and things of that nature, those are definitely viable options. But I do feel that you still have to have that basis of general dentistry, no matter what it is, whether it's doing an extraction, because sometimes in order to do that cosmetically driven bridge, you must have that tooth extracted, or you can actually refer the extraction as well. But a lot of people these days are into things immediately. So if you send them to the oral surgeon for the extraction and you only want to do the crown prep and the bridge, you're probably going to be a little bit behind the curve in terms of what you can actually produce, because we live in a today's society, and actually millennials more than anything would understand that, because they have instant communication on their phone. Everything they want to know is on their phone. And so that sort of transfers to patients wanting things sort of instantly or done by the same doctor. In my office, I do some of the bloody things as well, but for my denture wearers that have been wearing dentures for a lot of years, you can actually do this mini dental implant procedure in an almost bloodless way. We do it right through the tissue. It's minimally invasive. You can actually have that type of a practice as well.
But I think a lot of it's down to, because you and I in our lifetime, we've seen the economy's very good, very bad. I mean, I graduated in 1987 in May, and October was Black Monday. Then there was the March 2000, the post Y2K collapse, and there was the 2008. And I noticed in the 2008 collapse in my town of Phoenix, 86 dentists went bankrupt. And you know who those were? Those are the ones who only could do one thing.
Absolutely.
They lost all their skills for an extraction, a denture, a root canal. And they were, I had some in my front room crying. And I said, you can only take out amalgams and do impress and veneers. That's all you can do.
You have to
they couldn't do anything else.
Absolutely.
I'm like, how do you lose everything in 20 years except one thing?
You have to build up that armamentarium. I mean, you need every skill that you've learned in dental school. And of course, not all people like doing root canals because they're really time consuming and sometimes they just don't go right. And they don't like doing extractions. But when you take those things out of your arsenal, you limit the amount of patients that you can actually help. So I would advise to be as versatile as possible, to be as open-minded as possible, and that will actually lead you through those economic downturns. In fact, that's what happened in my office. In fact, I learned that from you a long time ago, Dr. Farran. The name of your office is Today's Dental. It implies that I can get my dental work done today. But if you send me for the extraction yesterday and they're going to come in for the bridge today, that's not Today Dental. So today you have to have all of these things at your disposal so that you can deliver that immediate care that a lot of people are expecting. And I think millennials in particular would understand that concept.
So keep your mom hat on and keep talking to her, because another thing that really confuses me is she'll tell me she can do extractions, but doesn't have the surgical skills to do an implant. If you can, if you can take a tooth out, isn't that kind of the same skill reversed to put an implant back in? How can you be able to take a tooth out and then look in the mirror and say, but I can't put something back in? Isn't it the same skill reversed?
It is a similar skill reverse, yes. It's probably more similar to drilling an implant post. And so maybe if you can do a root canal and place a post, I think that you would be able to replace a tooth. Conventional implantology is a little bit more labor intensive. There's a few more steps. You have to drill a bigger hole in the bone. You have to use more drills, more pilot drills to get to the sides of the bone so that the bone doesn't necrose from trying to squeeze too large of an implant in a smaller hole. But I would think it more than extraction is probably more like placing an implant, placing an endodontic post once you've done a root canal. But certainly today with guided stents, the training and the education is invaluable. Relearning the anatomy, knowing where your sinuses are, knowing where the bone is adjacent to where you've just taken out a tooth. Those are things that the courses like Shack First and my lecture sort of teaches that new student who wants to make that leap from from 0 implants to 1 implant. You start small. Now, of course, when you take a course like Shack First, you leave there with a lot of confidence, and you leave there knowing how to market and bring that patient into your office. So when you start marketing, you're not going to get all simple cases. So you want to sort of pace yourself. You want to start with the simpler ones. So maybe you don't do a big marketing campaign right away. You start with the patients that you have in your office, that patient that you know is missing 1 tooth or has a loose denture. And then you graduate from there. And then you can't stop learning. I started with the Shack group about 4 years ago. To date, I've attended at least 10 meetings with them. That includes their annual international conference, which I'm attending this weekend, but also the courses in Buffalo, where different doctors lecture. Doctors like me lecture who have a lot of experience. I also do a consulting service for some of the newer doctors, where I will go to their office. Now, because I'm not licensed in those states, I can't actually do the work, but I can show you the best way to put that stent in there, how to mark your spots, how to hold your bone, buccal to lingual. There are certain things that I can do that will pretty much guarantee that you can place that implant yourself, and you leave. And when I leave there, you leave with just a lot more confidence.
How do they get information on your consulting service?
Well, they can contact me at DRAJSDDS, which is Dr. AJSDDS, at
Say it again.
DRAJS.
AJS.
DDS.
DDS.
At gmail.com. So that's Dr. Andrea Joyce Smith, DDS at gmail.com.
What about your website? Is Smile Again Now? Is that your practice website?
That's my practice website, yes.
Okay, Smile Again Now.
SmileAgainNow.com.
And is your contact information on there too?
Yes, it is. My office information is on there.
So tell them how your consulting business works.
Actually, normally, Dr. Shatkin's group, or actually there's another mini implant group that I have taken some courses with. They have a lot of new doctors that are beginning to place implants. And so I am a Mini Dental Implant Center of America, which is a group that Dr. Shatkin started in an effort to sort of have a cohesive delivery of this type of service. And so there are 55 Mini Dental Implant Centers of America. I am one in California. And
so is that a website, Mini Dental Implant Centers of America?
MDICA.com. But it's the Mini Dental Implant Centers of America.com. It's a group that was originated with Dr. Shatkin. There's 55 centers nationwide. But what I do is I go to those lectures and I teach and I give a lecture. And a lot of the doctors would say, I really want to do this, but I feel that I need someone to hold my hand through this process. And I make a trip to their office. And my fee really is just a tax-deductible donation to my nonprofit foundation, which is called the Smile Again Now Foundation. And that website is smileagainnow.org. And what I do one Saturday a month, I close my office down and I do some free dental work for the community for patients. Then usually these patients are very close to me. They are family members of patients of mine who just don't have the insurance or the means. They are parents, actually, of some of my staff members who just don't have the means. And so we do this service, and we also have Smile Again Now Foundation partners where we will bring a Smile Again Now Foundation office to your, a Smile Again Now Foundation dental service day to your office. We bring the supplies, we bring volunteers, we bring things of that nature. The only thing that we like is for the staff of the office to be there, because they're the ones who are going to keep up with the equipment and the things that are used throughout the day. But the idea is there are people all over, very close to us as dentists, who are falling through the cracks for whatever reason. They don't have insurance coverage. They don't have the means. And my foundation is a small foundation. I can't do what the CDA does at our local Cal Expo Center, where there's people that show up days before and they line around the building. The only way that you can become a patient here is sort of through word of mouth, and you go onto the website, you sign up to become a recipient, and we contact you with our next day and the place and location of where it's going to be.
That is so amazing of you, because that was always one of the first things I was embarrassed about my profession is when you would go to these course when I graduated in 1987, and they would lecture in front of the whole room full of dentists about the A patient, the B patient, the C patient. And I'm like, well, every human needs a doctor.
Absolutely.
And when they got to the D patient, the F patient, that was the entire Farran family reunion in Parsons, Kansas.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, what a bunch of gall.
Exactly.
To be listening to this guy basically throwing my whole pedigree under a bus. And then what's sillier from the business perspective is 13.5% of America lives below the poverty line.
Yes.
Well, McDonald's, Walmart, IKEA thinks that's a really good market. And dentists seem to think there's only money at Nordstrom's and Lamborghini.
Exactly.
And it's just not true.
Money is definitely on all levels, and no money is also on all levels. And so one of my staff members, I'll give you an example, she's my hygienist. And she'd been working for me for about a year, and she didn't know about the foundation day until she started working for me. And she came up to me in private, she goes, "Doctor, do you think my dad can come in and get his tooth extracted? He's been up the last 3 nights." I said, "He doesn't have to really wait for the foundation day. He's your dad, right? Bring him in anytime." But he ended up waiting for the foundation day. And there's people around us all the time. Of course, we can't make money on every single patient. I mean, we really don't need to. There are a lot of people around us that just need a little bit of help. But the foundation does focus on dental cleanings and dental extractions. We don't get into doing crown and bridge work, implants, fillings, and things like that. One, they're time consuming, and two, it's very costly to deliver. But extracting a tooth is like walking to me. Doing a cleaning for a patient is like sitting down. So why wouldn't I want to give that to someone who really needs it?
So So you got out of University of California, San Francisco in '94.
Yes.
20% of these people are in junior seniors dental school.
Yes.
And the other 80% are pretty much all under 30.
Okay.
One of their big questions is you own your own practice.
Yes, I do.
How do you go from dental school to own your own practice? Did you walk us through your journey? Did you jump out of school and start up? How did you get from a senior in dental school to owning your own practice?
Right. Well, it started with going to dental school 22 years ago, when my entire dental school debt was nowhere near what it is now. So what I did my first year out is I worked for a community health clinic. So for 1 year, I worked with this amazing oral surgeon who really taught me a lot about oral surgery and doing a lot of extractions. For 1 year, I treated the underserved community. After that, with some budget changes in the city of Oakland, they shut down the clinic. And so one of my dental school classmates and we opened up a practice in Oakland, which was a few miles, maybe 2 miles away from that clinic. We opened up, and that clinic would immediately start referring patients to us. Now, they were a lot of them were Medi-Cal patients, but we actually bought an existing practice from a doctor who had been there for a lot of years. So there was a great patient base, but that population, underserved community that had Medi-Cal at the time, and at the time Medi-Cal paid a decent rate, and especially for new dentists getting out, we were just excited to start doing our skills and to start helping people. So that's what I did for the first 6 years of my practice. And then later my family, my husband and I decided to make the move to Sacramento, California, and one of the hardest things I ever did was to leave that practice with my colleague. She's actually still one of my very best friends, and she eventually moved on from the Oakland practice. She practices in San Leandro, but I came to Sacramento, and for the first year, my sons were in elementary school. I wasn't sure if I wanted to own my own practice. So for 6 years with her, we were partners. It was great. My birthday's around Christmas. I could take the whole 2 weeks off. She was there. She's from Africa. She could visit her mom in the summers, and I was there. So that's like the best of both worlds. If you have,
where in Africa?
She's from Eritrea.
Eritrea,
North Africa, near Ethiopia.
That was a long, brutal war with Ethiopia, wasn't it?
Yes, and actually in some ways it's still a long, brutal war. And so she was actually a refugee, really, to this
Yeah, all my
from
patients
there.
from Eritrea, they all were refugees.
But she worked her way up. She worked at hotels, things of that nature, worked her way through dental school. We started practicing together. We had a very similar mindset of how we wanted to actually help patients. And so we did that for 6 years in that practice together. But it came a time, my kids were young, and we were living on the other side of the bay in Foster City at the time. And as you probably can imagine, the housing prices were just really through the roof. And so my husband and I decided that if we really wanted to own a home, a nice home, we would like to move to a place where it was sort of a booming community of Elk Grove, California. And we moved our family there. Our kids were in elementary school still, so we didn't really didn't have a huge impact on moving them from their friends. And for the first year, I worked for a colleague that I had met years ago. She lived in Elk Grove. She had a practice in Elk Grove. And I worked with her trying to figure out whether I wanted to continue working for someone else or open my own practice. But what I figured out about myself is that I am a natural giver. And some people are not, and that's fine. And so when a friend of mine that lived in my city of Elk Grove wanted to come in to have me look at a tooth, my first reaction was not, what insurance do you have? My reaction is, of course you can come in. But when I'm working at another office, I have to be concerned about those things. And so I did not want to restrict my giving. And so that's when I said, you know what, that just answered my question, because if my friend wants to come to my office to have me look at a tooth, I don't care what insurance they have.
So now, is your husband, does he help you run the business, or are you guys totally separate as far as?
He helps in a lot of ways. He's my IT guy. He's been in IT for over 30 years. We've been married for 33. He does mobile apps. He actually built a mobile app for my business. His motto is, you can't get closer to your patient than them having you in their pocket on their phone every single day. One of the features of the app is whenever that phone travels through a certain radius of my office, it's reminding them of their appointment, or are you due for an appointment or something like that.
So it's on. So you can download the app store.
You can download the app store.
Ryan, will you download her app on my phone?
Dr. AJS DDS
is the name of the app.
Yes.
And is it free for your patients?
It's free for my patients. I have my post-op instructions on there for all the procedures that I do in the office. I have all of my services that I perform at the office. I have just about everything on that app.
That is amazing.
And so that's
now,
what he does.
Do you know many dentists who have their own app?
No. In fact, with the Shatkin group, my husband is building a lot of the apps for the doctors in the group. A lot of them are centered around mini dental implants, but mine is very general. You can download it at the Apple store and Apple iTunes.
So you have it on Apple iTunes. What about
the Android? Android's coming soon. I believe he has the Android version. I just don't have an Android phone, so I've never tried to look for it there. Vince, do you know?
You haven't been able to look for it where?
At the Android store. I don't have an Android phone, so I haven't looked at it, but it might be there. I'm not sure.
That is well, the reason I was asking about this, a lot of the kids, here's the brutal question they're asking. They're saying, gosh, I love being a professional. I just graduated from dental school.
Yes.
But I had 4 kids. You had 3. I should have followed your lead, not had Zach, but I didn't.
Actually, I have 2. I actually have 2.
Oh, you have 2.
So you went 2 above me. Yes.
Oh, okay. So the question is very brutal. It seems like most men aren't, and when they're thinking about their career, they're not even thinking about if I'm married, having kids, whatever.
Right.
But it seems like all the women dentists, which is half the class, are thinking, if I marry a man, there's a good chance I'm still going to have to be the soccer mom.
Yes.
So maybe I should just get a job at Aspen or Heartland or Pacific Dental, because can I really own my own practice, even though what percent, let me just ask you this, what percent of the child rearing do you think moms do over dads for the average woman dentist in America?
I think it might be a little better in this generation. I know my husband was really involved, but I know my dad worked a lot, so my mom did, I would say, 80 to 90% of the child rearing. I felt with my husband...
your mom did 80 to 90%? 80
to 90% of the child rearing. My dad probably did, 10 to 20% because he worked a lot. He had his own business as well.
That was my childhood too, 80-20.
Yeah. But for my generation, actually, I had my 2 children before I actually entered dental school.
How did you do that?
Well, that meant that Dad really had to step up, and he did. And so he took the kids to school. He took them, I took care of breakfast in the morning, and then, we'd all get off, and I'd have to be at school, of course, by 8. And then I'd come home at 5. And
so basically your children never went to school then?
They went to school.
You just believed he was taking them to school. They just stayed home and watched cartoons all day.
Well, he was working in Silicon Valley at the time, so they were attending. Vincent, my oldest son Ryan, was 6 months old when I decided to go back to go to dental school. So when I was studying for the DAT and taking a few extra classes, he was 6 months old, and I put him in daycare. And then Vincent came along about 18 months later. And by the time we moved to San Francisco, I was, done with that part of it. But dental school is a full-time job. and my husband worked full time at IBM at the time, and so they were in daycare for a very long time. So he did a lot of the child rearing in the evenings. I would come home at 5 after class ended, and I would, we'd have dinner together. We'd put the kids to school by 8, but then I would go back to dental school and wax those crowns and do whatever we had to do. And then my study time, in fact, I used to draw a lot of laughs from my classmates because my kids are born in December, which is usually finals time before the end of the year. And my other son, Ryan, is born in June, which is usually finals time again. So we would set up these study meetings. I would show up with cupcakes after my kid's birthday because I would have taken cupcakes that morning to class. We'd enjoy the cupcakes, happy birthday. Mom would go, and I'd have about 6 left over, and I'd go and give them to my dental school classmates. And they go, Andrea, I cannot believe you had time to do all this. Well, I was a mother first, and I was competitive in dental school, but only with myself. I said, I can get some A's, some B's, and some C's. A lot of people coming right out of college, 21, 22 years old. Now, I was 28, I believe, so that's not that old. But the 22 and 23-year-olds, they felt like they were a generation away from me, and they were very competitive, and they came from probably getting all A's and B's or honor society, whatever colleges they are, because dental schools definitely accept the best of the best out of colleges. And so I was a little different because I was out of college for about 6 years. I had my family, I was already married, and it was a little bit different for me. So I didn't just go straight from college to dental school. I had a little bit of a life in between, and when I had my kids, and it's not hard to do, when you have your kids, they actually just come first, period, whether you're a dental student or not. So that's the way I've run my life. Wouldn't you say that, Vincent? I put you first.
I just want to get DNA testing on all 4 of my boys. I still don't think they're even related to me. And so that's neat because you in dental school, a lot of people complain there's so much competitive backstabbing and all that stuff. It seems like the most successful people, the only person they compete with is themselves 10 years in the future. They're trying to be that. And
exactly.
And they never stop because when you get there, you're still competing with yourself 10 years further than that.
Right.
No matter how old you are, you're still competing with yourself 10 years.
Absolutely.
And business is a golf game. It's not a boxing match.
There is no destination. Once you reach where you believe your destination is, actually, I would say even in 2007 when I took that first mini dental implant class, I never even thought about becoming a diplomat in the International Academy of Mini Dental Implants. It just evolved. When I first started practicing, I had a lot of patients that needed fillings, root canals, crowns, and bridges. Now, 22 years later, we have this aging baby boom population of which I'm a part. And now they have missing teeth, they have dentures. And so as my patient population has evolved, I have evolved in the services that I offer.
I decided this morning I'm no longer going to be a baby boomer. I'm now a millennial.
You're a millennial? Well, I like the way they think.
I changed my status. Why do you like the way they think?
The way they think, I don't know. When I grew up, I watched my dad work hard. I watched my mom stay home and rear the kids until my youngest sister. I'm one of 11 children, by the way. I'm number 9 of 11 children.
Was your mom Catholic or Catholic?
Only
Catholics have 11 kids.
No, they grew up in the South, and I just don't think there was a lot of things to do down there.
Where in the South?
Birmingham, Alabama. I was actually born in Birmingham, Alabama. I was their last child born in Birmingham, Alabama, and I think I was intended to be the last child, but when they came to California, they ended up having 2 more, so that's why I'm number 9 of 11.
And Oakland was actually started a lot of people migrated from the South to go into the shipbuilding industry.
Yes.
So that was a World War II city.
Yeah, we actually moved down to Southern California.
Yeah.
I grew up in Southern California. I attended UCLA. And then it wasn't until I decided to go to dental school that I moved up to Northern California. And the job in Oakland, the dental health clinic job, is what led me to continue to practice in Oakland because there was a need there. And I liked serving that particular
But that's the roots of Oakland. Oakland didn't really exist until World War II. Then the Navy, they lost half all their boats in Pearl Harbor. Mm-hmm. And so they had to immediately start building a ton of boats. And Oakland's right on the shore.
Yes.
And all those workers came from the South.
Yes.
And so Oakland is the South coming up there to build World War II battleships and all that stuff. That was the birth of that city. So so if you were talking to a bunch of people that worked right now in as an associate.
Yes.
Only 12 to 15. Well, you know, they're working associate, whether it be corporate dentistry
Yes.
or just associate. What skill sets do they need to acquire to be able to open up their own practice? What do you think they should be focusing on if their end goal is to be like you,
right?
To have it all: kids, husband, and own my own practice.
Yes. Well, it really starts with the basic foundation because, you know, as much as we complained about it when we were going through it in dental school, that basic dental foundation is key to building. And then you have to, like I said before, have an open mind. You have to be willing to do a root canal. I have colleagues that said the day I graduated from dental school, that was the last root canal I'd ever do. Well, you have to continue to do root canals. You have to continue to do extractions. You have to continue to do all of the things that you may not like to do, but you increase that skill set. Because a lot of times in these corporate offices, and I don't know a lot about corporate dentistry, I know it's big in dentistry right now, but a lot of times they would like you to come in and be able to do that 3 root molar endo, or even bicuspids or anteriors. So if you keep that skill set will actually serve you well when you do open your own practice. That's one thing that happened to me. When I went to work at the health clinic, I had a lot of patients that needed root canals and extractions. And so that is one of the things that sort of built my interest in it. And so once they closed that clinic, I opened my own office. I did a lot more root canals and extractions. So guess what? When I moved to Sacramento, I could do root canals and extractions, but then I opened my mind to include sedation dentistry, Invisalign. I do the child pinhole surgical technique, mini dental implants, and I have evolved with my patient population, and I've evolved with dental technology as well, and things that are available that were not available when I was in dental school, or that certainly were not taught when they were in dental school. So it starts with education and actually keeping all of those skills that you had to learn in order to become a dentist.
A lot of dental students ask a very smart, intelligent business question. They say, okay, when I get out of school, I could learn sleep medicine, Invisalign, implants, CAD/CAM. I could learn all these things, but forget what I'm interested in, you're interested in.
Right.
What is the customer interested in? What skill sets do you learn where people from your neighborhood say, I want to buy that?
Exactly.
And what do the consumers want to buy that they could learn?
The consumers, particularly our generation, Howard, we don't want to lose a tooth. They don't want to lose their teeth. They want to buy an implant. So how did I start doing implants? Well, it started with me doing oral surgery. And then it started with me opening my mind to think I can do something else. Well, my patient that I saw last year or 5 years ago, she needed a denture. Well, she has the denture, but now 5 years later, she's complaining about the denture. How can I help that patient? So the main thing that probably drove the evolution of my career is the evolution of my patient population. They need different things. I had children in my practice that are now the millennials. They're 22, 23 years old, the same age as my children. And a lot of them don't even have a cavity. But their parents have missing teeth.
Is that because they're too lazy to eat sugar?
No, I think they probably eat a fair amount of sugar.
What do you think of the slam? Everybody always says the millennials are lazier than us baby boomers.
You know, I actually don't think they're lazier. I think that they may not want. They see how hard we work, and it's exhausting, and they know that it is. But they actually love to work. My son Vincent here, for instance, he's actually busier than I am, but he's doing the things that he wants to do. But honestly, when I was off for 5 years from college, between college and dental school, like I said, the one thing that drove me back to dental school is when I got pregnant with my oldest son, Ryan. He's now 28. I said to myself, and my husband had gotten me a job in the IT field where he was working after I graduated from UCLA. But after I got pregnant with Ryan, I said to myself, how am I going to be an example for them to pursue the dreams that they want to pursue if I just stay here because, you know, this was an easy job to get and it was just a job. So I actually had to push myself to go back out, and that's why Ryan was 6 months old when he went back to when he went to daycare, because I wanted to be that example for them. And so that's the main thing that actually drove me to dental school was our kids. And like I said, when you're a mother the kids just come first. And so it started with that.
Yeah, that is neat. So besides implants, what do consumers want to buy that you learned how to?
Yes, well, they actually want to buy sedation dentistry. Believe it or not, millions of Americans are afraid of the dentist. A lot of times we think that patients don't go to the dentist because they believe it's expensive, they don't have enough insurance, they don't have enough money. But a lot of it is they don't have, they're very fearful. They've had horror stories. And so sedation dentistry was something I started in 2005 to sort of meet that need of that patient population that was coming in. So I took oral conscious sedation courses, 4 or 5 of them, continued my learning process. And so I started advertising for that. And you'd be amazed at the amount of people that come in and say, no, I've needed this work for years. They come in, they need a full mouth reconstruction. They need implants. They need extractions. They need root canals. They need everything. And so when you can sedate them and you can turn you can turn 20 visits into 1 or 2 simple sedation visits where the medications have an amnesia effect, then they're happy. They don't remember the drama and trauma of having all that work done, but yet they are able to achieve a lot of dental work. So sedation is something that patients want to buy. Patients want to save their teeth. Another service that I offer is Perio Protect. It's a real simple gum procedure where you wear trays for 10 minutes with a certain gel in it. Once I've educated them that they have gingivitis and gum disease, well, doctor, I want to know how can I get my gums to stop bleeding forever or, for as long as I can. In addition to the deep cleanings that they probably are going to need periodically, we send them home with a Perio Protect product. And they use that 10 minutes a day while brushing. And it has a great side effect. It actually whitens their teeth as well. So not only are they treating their gum disease, the teeth are being whitened. So they want to buy, patients want to buy these things. And so it is incumbent upon us as professionals first, but we also have to be business people, and we also have to care enough about how the patient population is changing to get in and learn all the different things that dentistry has to offer.
I think fear is the most least talked about thing. I mean, like, it seems like if you have 100 dentists have a conversation, 80% of them will talk about the importance of same-day dentistry.
Yes.
It's like that's really only a patient concern that I've heard about once a decade.
Right.
But every single day you tell someone they need dentistry, half the questions are, well, how much is it going to be? Mm-hmm. And the other half are like, I'm scared. Am I going to get a shot? Can you knock me out? Do you have a laughing gas? Why do you think that is so overlooked? I mean, how could you be a dentist and not realize that when a dentist is in a movie, is it ever a good thing?
Never. Not in a Little Shop of Horrors.
I mean, every time a dentist is in Hollywood, it's you're a freak, you're gonna hurt me, it's a nightmare. I mean, it's whenever they say there's a dentist in the movie, I know it's not going to be good. And yet, why do you think more dentists don't focus on anxiety and fear and conscious sedation?
Dentists, and I'm part of this, we operate in a very small area, in the mouth. And a lot of times we have to concern ourselves with the details, and we're very familiar with the science, and we know that when we give them a shot, they're not going to feel any of this. And sometimes we could overlook the rest of the body that's actually in the chair. So when we become just more in tune with our patient population, I think they'll think about it more. In fact, I didn't even know that people were afraid of dentists until I became a dentist. Growing up, I didn't go to the dentist very often. I was just very fortunate and lucky and not to have dental problems. But I didn't even know that people were afraid to go to the dentist until I became one. And very early on in dental school, I picked up on that. And when I had an opportunity to learn sedation dentistry through the Dental Organization of Conscious Sedation, they have a great program, docs. And I was able to start delivering that service. It's probably overlooked because a lot of times as dentists, we are bogged down in the details. We know the science of what we're going to do. We know that we can look at that x-ray, we see that cavity, we know how to fix it, and we do it all day, every day. And we have to remember that the patients don't receive it all day, every day. And so it's just about being more in tune with your patients. And I think that we are all dentists and healthcare professionals in general because we really care and want to help people. And it's not a stretch to just be a little bit more perceptive of what patients could be possibly feeling.
And what's all the docs controversy lately with the ADA meeting?
Well, every few years.
Do you want to wade into that swamp, or do you want to just say pass?
Well, you know what? The good thing is that Docs has a great team.
This is Dentistry Uncensored.
That's right. Well, Docs has a great machine in place for dealing with the ADA. But every few years, a certain subset of our dental professionals, they believe that oral conscious sedation done by a general dentist is not safe for the patient. So in the interest of patient safety, and of course I believe they are working, coming from a very good place in the interest of patient safety, because patient safety is first and foremost. But in the interest of patient safety, this group of doctors would prefer oral surgeons administer the general anesthesia. So they want general dentists to just to treat patients not with sedation. So that's very difficult because the oral surgeon doesn't do the drilling and the filling. And so we are here in general practice picking up on this fear, but it would really be a shame if we as general dentists couldn't provide this basic anxiety relieving service of oral conscious sedation in order to get that patient through the process. So I don't really understand the complete rationale for wanting the ADA to change its rules about who can provide sedation dentistry, but I do see that there's a huge need for oral conscious sedation, and I think the general dentist can fill that need quite adequately.
Yeah, my beef with that whole argument is the fact that all these dental schools, like my dental school, is paid for. They're public schools.
Yes.
So they're paid for by the taxpayers of the state. You know, the dental students always say, well, I paid for my dental school. Yes. Well, maybe if you went to private, you did. Mm-hmm. But when you went to a public school, like I went to University of Missouri, Kansas City, and your tuition only covers about 25 to 30% of the cost. Yes. So the taxpayers pick up the cost. Mm-hmm. But then when I look at the specialists, they're only where 45% of America lives, in the cities. Right. And America has 19,022 towns. There's only 5,000 oral surgeons. Do you think there's an oral surgeon in every one of those towns?
Absolutely not.
So if you're paid for by the rural farmers of America and you live in a town of 2,500, then how can you send back a dental student to that town who got no training in orthodontics?
Exactly.
The oral surgeons don't think you should pull a wisdom tooth. Come on. There's another part of America that no one talks about.
Absolutely.
And right now in Kansas and Iowa, 11% of the cities don't have a dentist. In fact, what Iowa's doing right now, Iowa has a list of all the cities without a dentist. Mm-hmm. And if you go there, the state of Iowa will give you a check for $100,000, and Delta will match it. And then those dentists go to that town, and the mayor of the town walks them down to town, and where there's a bunch of empty buildings, says pick a building. So now you got a free building.
Wow. And
2 different checks for $100,000.
I wasn't aware of that.
And every one of those dentists I know that's done that, no competition, set their own fees, no PPOs. They collected like $1 million the first year and took home $300,000.
Wow.
And then who's against that city? The public dental school, who says, oh no, only a specialist could do that. Dude, you don't even have a general dentist in this town. And you're already handcuffing him behind his back, telling him what he can't do when the town doesn't even have anyone.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't add up. They don't do the logical thinking through, as you've just explained. And I didn't know about that particular program in Iowa. I don't want to take another dental board, but hey, they do have a lot of reciprocation now.
I like the way China can do a lot of things differently because they have an authoritarian hierarchical government. Mm-hmm. But they had such an absence of dentists in the rural that they realized that their dental schools were 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year. Uh-huh. So the government a couple of years ago just drew a line and said, okay, if you went to a 2 or 3-year dental school, you can't practice in the big cities. So it forced half the dentists out of the cities where they don't need any more dentists to finally all go out rural, where all the rice farmers and all that stuff. And I thought that was a genius solution.
That is.
Which you could never pull off in America.
No.
You could never just write a law that said half the class had to go to a town of under 2,500, which is what they should be doing. But you probably politically can't.
No, exactly. But you're right. There is definitely a gap in dental care in America. There really is. And my small Smile Again Now Foundation is designed to pick up those patients that are what I call closest to me, my staff members, family, my patient's family, who just don't have the means. There are ways that each and every doctor can make a contribution to that. In fact, we have Smile Again Now Foundation partner offices where we will bring a Smile Again Now Foundation to your office, and you can help some of those patients. Like I said, I think we're all givers and providers and people that care about people. It's not that much to do an extraction or to do a cleaning on a patient close to you, or even not even so close to you, that may need it. So I actually see the Smile Again Now Foundation as a national organization where I will be putting together a group of people that we've for the last year. I opened the foundation in 2011, and so from 2011 and 2015, I basically just made time in my schedule for those patients. But in November of 2015, I actually launched the actual day where I close on a Saturday or I go to another office on a Saturday. And there's so many dentists. The foundation wouldn't need a partner more than once in a 12-month period. There's so many dentists, even just around my office. So to give your office one day, and we do it for like 2 or 3 hours. There's usually 3 or 4 hygienists, 2 or 3. My office has 5 operatories. So the days that we give, I normally have either 2 or 3 dentists or 2 or 3 hygienists, and we fill all 5 rooms. We each see about 5 patients, and we end at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we've seen 30 patients, and we've done a good service for that day. So
yeah, well, I grew up in Catholic school. My favorite Catholic nun was Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and my favorite quote from her is, "If you can't save the world, just save one person."
Absolutely, I like that.
She was amazing.
That.
My other favorite quote from her, there was a Western journalist watching her clean maggots out of the cut of some homeless guy in Calcutta, and the journalist said, I wouldn't do that for $1 million. And Mother Teresa said, either would I.
She'd do it just out of the kindness of her heart.
Yeah.
And that's where just goodwill and good human caring come from. It starts in your heart. And that, I'm like I said, I believe I'm a natural giver, and I think that dentistry is something that really suits me well. My son Vincent, we're talking about millennials, and they do work really, really hard. My son Vincent tells me all the time, Mom, you work like an intern. You get there at 6 in the morning, you get home at 6 at night. You're working as hard as I did when I was interning in Hollywood. He goes, it's 22 years now, enough already. So that's part of the problem that I'm dealing with, and learning how to walk myself back so I don't run myself into the ground. But I like the way millennials think in a lot of ways. They're very open-minded. I love the millennial group. Well, I have 2 millennials, so and they.
Yeah, I can already assure you, you'll never retire. I can already assure you that. If that's your goal, Vincent, just give up now. What about ortho?
Ortho, I do Invisalign. We didn't get a lot of ortho training in dental school, as you know. And early on, before Invisalign came about, I did attempt to take the ortho courses that they offer to general dentists, where you go, 1 weekend a month and you learn. But I just found it to be a little cumbersome for me in my hands. It's not something that I really gravitated to. But again, as my patients' children were aging, that's the need that I saw emerging. And so I took that path to attempt to learn ortho. And when Invisalign came along, that's the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, you do have to understand the basics of tooth movement and things like that, but Invisalign does an awesome job of teaching you that. And once you start that case, you know how it's going to go from start to finish, and you can start delivering that service. So I do wish that we had a little bit more training in ortho, but Invisalign to the rescue.
What I don't understand about the Invisalign training is the most expensive orthodontic course in America. Mm-hmm. You get all your money back with the first case.
Yes.
I mean, there's no. I mean, what's Invisalign cost in your practice?
About $4,500.
Yeah, there's no Invisalign course in the country that costs that much money.
No.
I mean, a full ortho case by Dr. Richard Litt is the only board certified orthodontist I know that teaches orthodontics. And again, the tuition for his whole course is the cost of one case.
Right.
How do you not figure a return on investment in ortho if one case gets all your education money back?
Right, and probably with Invisalign, maybe 2 cases gets all of it. Actually, Invisalign, I took the class in 2005, so I don't really know what the cost of their courses are now, but a lot of the follow-up courses that I do as they update their software and things like that, those are like $99 to $150, so they're not very, very expensive. So the return on investment for that could potentially be huge. And so you could actually build a practice on Invisalign, but the problem with that is, as a general dentist, then you are going to have that patient that needs a filling or things like that. So I don't see how limiting your practice to all the bloodless stuff, it would definitely work, but you could definitely build a practice that is largely built on cosmetics and implants. I mean, it's a viable option.
What about CAD/CAM?
CAD/CAM, I think, is great. I think
Did you do it?
I actually had a CEREC machine for a brief moment, for a brief while, but I sold it because it wasn't something that I could really make time to do in my office, designing crowns.
This is
like
Dentistry Uncensored. Most all their messages they're going to get is the rank and file. You got it. This is Dentistry Uncensored.
Yes.
Probably 85% of dentists don't have one. So give the Dentistry Uncensored rant on why it didn't work for you. Be brutally honest. They're not going to hear very many brutally honest anti-CAD/CAM arguments in dental world.
Well, as with everything, technology is the wave of the future. However, there's nothing that's going to substitute for the quickness of a good old-fashioned PVS impression. Yes, you pay for the materials and things of that nature. With CAD/CAM, it's not as easy as it looks. At the time when I had a CEREC, you had to use this blue powder. I'm sure things have probably changed, but you used the blue powder, and if it wasn't coated just right, or if you didn't have the camera angle just right, it couldn't stitch the images. So we had to do that, and staff members could be trained to do that, but I had a very small office. I had myself, one doctor, one front desk, and two assistants. It actually took me years to actually get a hygienist. And so with that small office in the busy practice that I had, I didn't have time to really designate a staff member for that. And so for the return on investment, for me, it just really didn't work. It was much easier for me to get a $99 Bruxier crown from Glidewell to take a 2-minute impression. And there's a lot sold on same day. A lot of doctors would say, I just have them go to Starbucks. We have Starbucks next door. I have them go to Starbucks while the crown is milling well. Unless you have a designated person that's going to sit there, design that crown, trace that margin, take that digital image. That was at the time when I was doing it. Things could be a lot easier now.
Well, let me ask you this brutally exact question. How many of your patients are more concerned about getting it same day versus I'm afraid and have anxiety?
About 0.0% are concerned about getting it daily, and almost, I'd say 75% are concerned about if it's going to hurt, do I have to get a shot?
Yet, if you read the dental media world, they would make you think that everybody's obsessed with the same day.
Right.
When really, I just see 2 obsessions. How much is it going to cost? And are you going to hurt me?
Those are the 2 obsessions that have been there since I started practicing, and those are the 2 main obsessions that are there now. Even if you read the dental trade magazines, 90% of it is all digital technology. When you turn every page, you've got a CAD/CAM on there of some sort. You've got a 3D CT digital X-ray. I mean, you've got everything is digital. And digital is great, but, there's something to be said for handling, like you said, the 2 most prominent
cost and freight.
So
let's go to the fear. I want to go back to that. Is there any profile to the person that's afraid? Is it more likely to be a certain type of person, age, sex?
No, it's everybody.
Even a woman who's had 11 children?
Even a woman who's had 11 children. My mom was unfortunate enough to lose a tooth, at least one tooth with every child. And then on top of that, she didn't always receive proper dental care. So she wore a denture by the time I was definitely in high school and definitely in dental school. She had a denture. She actually had a denture over a lower partial. She maintained the lower front 6 anteriors. And when they started to crumble, she went to the dentist one day. This was well before I was even a dentist. she said, well, he said that he could do root canals and crowns and save them, but it's going to cost this amount. But if you just take out these last 6 teeth and put a denture in there, basically I'd be done with the dentist. So I told him to just take them out and do the last 6 teeth. So it was cost. It was fear, not wanting to go back and forth for 6 root canals, 6 build up, 6 crowns, or however you want to do it. And she didn't like one of the dentists. She just had to go because she didn't have proper dental care. She had an element of fear, and that's what they would say when she would go to the dentist. Oh, okay, we'll just pull it. And so over the years, that's how she ended up.
But the people that are afraid, you wouldn't say they're more likely to be men versus women, or is
no, it's probably 50-50.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place.
Does it surprise sometimes when you'll see a man come in and he's sleeved with tattoos where he's had like 1 million injections and he's afraid of me giving him one shot? Does that always?
I've seen it, but I don't really judge it because getting a tattoo is different than getting a dental injection. One in a tattoo, you probably feel you have control. You walked in there wanting that half the time, or all of the time. When you come into the dental office, you're walking in you're being told that you need it. And there's something about people, they just say, oh, my mouth is so much more sensitive than the rest of my body. And who am I to say that it is or isn't for that particular person? But I've treated, the youngest person I've probably treated is probably with sedation is probably about 17, 18. Our protocol definitely doesn't call for using it on children. Definitely not under 12. I think I've stuck with 17, 18 year old, with, of course, with parent permission. And my oldest is probably 80 years old.
I've noticed a lot of profiling and anxiety. I noticed that Raider fans are twice as afraid of the
I
Dennis
don't think
than
so.
Cardinals fans.
Have you seen those Raiders fans? They are very brave out there on the field.
Can I ask you one overtime question? We went over an hour,
Okay.
but I got one more question. Pediatric dentistry. So when we look at the demographics, I mean, we're baby boomers.
Yes.
We're retiring at 10,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
The millennials in 2007 had an echo boom of 4.7 million children. And then Obamacare, Affordable Health Care Act, comes and says what the 20 richest countries do, that children under 12, when they get health insurance, it's got to cover dentistry.
Yes.
So when we go to Dental Town and we have 300 online CE courses, the two most popular viewed courses are pediatric dentistry because it's just exploding.
It definitely
there's
is.
all these newborn babies. There's an extra several million covered by dental insurance under the Affordable Health Care Act. But I'm a man, you're a woman.
Yes.
When I was little, all the OBGYNs were males. Now they're all female.
Right.
I pretty much haven't met a male pediatric dental graduate in the last 4 or 5 years. Do you think, several questions, do you think pediatric dentistry will be the first specialty that will turn all women like OBGYN did? Number 2, do you think when I was in school, the senior class had 1 woman? Now the class is half women. Do you think the women dentists in school right now will be more likely to do pediatric dentistry, take advantage of the millennial echo boom, the more kids insurance? Do you think
so.
pediatric dentistry is really going to change massively?
I actually think so, with that echo boom that you're talking about, and I think women with the dental school going to half women. In fact, my year at UC San Francisco, for the first time in the history of the school, we had more women than men. We actually had 51%. They were 49%. And several of the women in my class actually did go on to do pediatric dentistry. So I think it definitely has the potential to be that new, that aspect of dentistry that goes all female. It definitely has that potential. And I don't really know any male pedodontist at this point.
I don't know any. I don't know one man my age that likes working on kids. I don't know one.
Yeah, I actually don't either. And
do you like working on kids?
I do work on kids. I work up because a lot of my patients, I've been treating them for a while. They get to be 23, 24 years old. They have children. They bring their children to me because that's who their mom went to. Their mom brought them to me. So I do work on a limited number of kids.
So let me just brutally ask you, let's get right to the point. Why do you think not one man I know my age wants to work on kids and women do? Do you think it's a maternal instinct?
I think it's a maternal
Do you think it's
nurturing.
a hardwired biological, or do you think it's environmental shaping? Do you think you were born differently than me Do you think you have maternal instincts and thus more likely to treat a 3-year-old, and the males at birth were missing something that wanted them to do a pulpotomy on A?
Right. Well, I think that men definitely have that paternal instinct, you know, when the time comes. But I believe that women. I remember when one of my classmates, very close to me, when she decided to become a pedodontist, they had some pedodontists come and talk to our class, and there was actually an African American pedodontist, and at that point we didn't know any pedodontists, and she and I were sitting right next together, and I thought at the time, wow, I could become a pedodontist because I liked what they were sharing with us. They had videos and they were showing us the kids. My classmate actually became a pedodontist. So I do think that women might be a little bit more hardwired to take care of children in the chair, because we are probably, you know, that maternal instinct probably kicks in. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, because I noticed in many animals, many male animals like lions and tigers, when they're hungry, will eat their babies, but the moms never do.
Yeah, that's that maternal instinct that's just innately there, I believe.
So now, are you going back to the convention?
Yes, I'm going to go back to the convention. There's a couple more talks later on today, and we'll wrap it up
Friday,
tonight.
So it was Friday, Saturday?
Just Friday, Saturday, yes.
Friday, Saturday. Well, Andrea, it was such an honor that you left the convention to come over to Howie's house and do this, and it was just amazing. It was enjoyable, and it was a huge honor that you would
thank you.
Take time out of your schedule to
Absolutely.
come see.
And I'm so honored to be here. Like I said, you don't know me personally, but I've seen you several times. I've even spoke with you personally a few times, but you probably meet and see so many dentists. So it is truly an honor for me to be sitting less than 2 feet away from you and actually speaking to you as my colleague, because for so many years I've watched you on stage and watched you deliver presentations, and definitely looking up to you the whole time. So I really am very honored to be here with you today.
You're too kind. And we both have a son named Ryan.
Yes, we do. So it was meant to be.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thanks
It's my
for coming
pleasure.
with your mom.